there are whispers stored beyond time, not in any book, not on any tablet, but in a field of light that remembers every soul's journey and every future not yet lived. They are visions no telescope can find and no machine can decode. Yet they have been visited by mystics, dreamers, and seers for thousands of years. In this place, the past, present, and future are not separate lines, but threads woven into the same tapestry. Touch one, and you feel the tremor in all the others. The ancients called it the Library of the Soul, the Hall of Records, the Book of Life. But those who entered it in its deepest form found something else. Prophecies, living messages still breathing, shifting with the choices of humanity. Some of these prophecies speak of a time of awakening, when the veils between worlds would thin, when memory would return to the sleeping, and when the sky itself would speak to the ground. Others carry warnings of false dawns, of temptations disguised as light, of crossroads where humanity's next chapter would be decided. And whether you believe in prophecy or not, the signs are here. The same visions recorded centuries ago are beginning to echo in our own time, in our technology, in our politics, in the quiet stirrings of our inner lives. The shift they describe is already unfolding. The question is no longer if the prophecies are real. The question is, when they speak to you, will you listen? A thin wind moved through the high desert, carrying the scent of sage and the low hum of a world holding its breath. Beneath an ancient tree, time seemed to slow, as if the earth herself was listening. In that stillness, a vision long hidden stirred awake, reaching for the mind of the one who had come to find it. In the unseen layers of reality, the Akashic field, a vision shimmered, untethered from time, yet heavy with inevitability. Mystics describe this field as a living library, a subtle dimension that holds the memory of every thought, action, and possibility. Modern pioneers like Erwin Laszlo have compared it to a cosmic information field, a quantum tapestry where nothing is ever lost, only waiting to be found. The woman beneath the tree had spent years learning to still her mind until the clamor of the outer world faded, leaving only the hum, that faint, vibrating presence one feels when the boundary between self and universe begins to dissolve. Then it arrived. Not a thought, not a dream, but a cascade of images so vivid they seemed carved into the fabric of her being. Rivers glowing like molten gold, cities shaped from water and light, people speaking without words, their hearts luminous. Yet intertwined with this beauty came shadows, skies darkened by ash, great towers crumbling, crowds wandering in confusion, searching for something they could not name. From the silence, a voice emerged, neither male nor female, both intimate and vast. When the bearer pours the water, the world will remember or be lost. Her eyes opened, the desert wind moving gently through the branches above. She knew this was no personal vision. It was a message, a prophecy that had waited through centuries of forgetfulness, for the dawn of an age that was now breaking. Some speak of a place where every thought, every choice, every heartbeat is written in light. Others call it the hidden archive of all that has ever been. But within this archive lies a current that moves and shifts, whispering of futures not yet lived. Most have heard whispers of the Akashic Records, that vast, invisible library said to contain the imprint of every soul, every thought, every event across the sweep of eternity. In Sanskrit, Akasha means ether, the subtle substance believed to hold the memory of all things. Theosophists like Helena Blavatsky wrote of it as a cosmic ledger, unchanging, preserved beyond space and time. But what few understand is that within this infinite archive lies something far more dynamic, the Akashic Prophecies. If the records are the history, the prophecies are the living draft. They are not fixed like the ink on a page. They are fluid, shifting with the choices we make, with the directions humanity takes, with the rise and fall of our collective consciousness. A seer entering the records may find the same moment written in multiple ways, each a thread leading to a different future. This is where the difference becomes profound. The records preserve what has been. The prophecies reveal what could be. They are not predictions carved in stone, but possibilities vibrating in the subtle field. In quantum theory, scientists speak of the superposition, a state where multiple outcomes exist at once until one is chosen. The Akashic Prophecies are the spiritual mirror of that concept. They are the branching paths of destiny, observed not through equations, but through the language of symbols, visions, and archetypes. Those who touch them often describe the sensation as both exhilarating and terrifying. Exhilarating because they glimpse futures of luminous beauty, a humanity united, a planet healed. Terrifying because they also see the shadows, the paths where greed triumphs, where memory is lost, where the light is forgotten. And within the prophecies, one truth is always clear. The future is not simply found, it is chosen. Shelves of stone, pages made of air, stories written not with ink, but with the pulse of living memory. The living library cannot be touched by hand, yet it is more real than any monument, a field that changes as we change. To understand the Akashic field, imagine a library where the shelves are not fixed, where the books rewrite themselves in real time, and where the stories are alive, breathing, watching, waiting. This is why mystics call it the living library. It is not a cold archive of dead facts. It is a field of awareness, one that changes as we change, its contents rippling like water when a single pebble of choice is dropped into it. The concept finds echoes in modern science. In quantum physics, the observer effect suggests that the act of observation influences the outcome. Erwin Laszlo, in his theory of the Akashic field, describes it as a vast, subtle energy matrix, a cosmic memory that interacts with consciousness itself. In this view, every decision, every shift in intention, sends a signal into the field, rewriting the patterns of possibility. Ancient cultures spoke of it in different tongues. The Egyptians called it the Hall of Ma'at, where the truth of every soul was weighed and where futures could be glimpsed in symbols. In Vedic tradition, rishis described Akasha as the first element, the ether that holds the sound of all creation. Among the Maya, it was the memory of the gods, alive in the stones, the stars, and the blood of the people. To enter this living library is to step into a mirror that shows not only what has been, but the spectrum of what could come next. A choice made in kindness today might open a path that did not exist yesterday. A choice made in fear might close a door that had been standing open for lifetimes. And so, the prophecies within it are never still. They are the pulse of destiny itself, shifting in rhythm with the heartbeat of humanity. The stars move so slowly you cannot see their motion, yet over millennia they redraw the map of the sky. This celestial dance has been the silent clock of civilizations, marking the rise and fall of ages, and with them, the prophecies that speak to each. The Akashic field is woven into the greater fabric of cosmic time, a rhythm measured not in days or years, but in vast cycles that span thousands of years. Mystics and astronomers alike have studied the great precessional cycle, the slow, majestic wobble of Earth's axis that takes roughly 25,920 years to complete. This motion shifts the backdrop of the stars, moving humanity through what ancient astrologers called the Great Ages. Each age carries its own signature, its own archetypal lessons, shaping civilizations and guiding the evolution of consciousness. The age of Taurus saw the rise of earthbound temples and agricultural mastery. The age of Aries brought fire, conquest, and the birth of empires. The age of Pisces wrapped humanity in the waters of faith, sacrifice, and devotion. And now we stand at the threshold of Aquarius, the water bearer, whose symbols speak of innovation, unity, and the dissolving of old boundaries. The Akashic Prophecies are intimately tied to these cycles. They are not static messages that apply equally in every era. They are written for the turning of the wheel, for the precise alignment of stars, planets, and the collective mind. A prophecy that lay dormant in one age may awaken in another, its meaning unlocking only when the conditions it describes begin to emerge in the world. This is why the prophecies of awakening, long hidden, are surfacing now. The great ages are not just markers of astronomical time. They are portals in consciousness. And when the heavens shift, the living library responds. Its pages rearrange. New futures become visible. Old ones fall away. The field itself begins to hum with the anticipation of what is about to be born. They stood in temple shadows, on mountaintops, in the silence of caves. Eyes closed, breath steady, they journeyed inward to touch a place beyond time. These were the seers, the first to find the hidden threads of the living library. Long before the word Akashic was spoken, there were those who knew how to enter the field. They were the watchers, the dreamers, the keepers of memory. Men and women who learned to still the mind until the noise of the world fell away, leaving only the subtle currents of the unseen. These ancient seers did not stumble into their visions by chance. They trained for years, sometimes lifetimes, to master the art of traveling inward. In the temples of Egypt, initiates lay in the darkness of the sleep chambers, fasting and meditating until their senses crossed the threshold into other realms. Among the Vedic rishis of India, sacred chants and breathwork aligned the body with the vibration of Akasha, allowing the soul to touch what they called the Mahatattva, the great principle from which all knowledge flows. In the high Andes, Inca shamans drank from the Huachuma cactus and gazed into the stars, entering what they described as the weaving place, where time braided itself into patterns. They recorded what they saw in many forms, on clay tablets, in sacred scrolls, in the symbols carved into stone. But not all was meant to be preserved in words. Many prophecies were hidden in story and myth, disguised in the language of gods and heroes, so that only the initiated could read their deeper meaning. The Hopi spoke of the blue star Kachina, the sign of great change. The Maya recorded Khatoon prophecies, each describing the tone of an era. The Sibylline oracles of ancient Greece spoke in riddles that only revealed their truth when the destined moment arrived. These visions were not for idle curiosity. They were warnings, preparations, and reminders, threads of a tapestry woven across cultures and centuries, all leading to the same truth. The future could be seen, but it was never fixed. For more than 2 millennia, the symbol of the fish swam through human history, carrying stories of faith, sacrifice, and surrender. But in the deep currents of the Akashic field, another story waited. One that spoke not only of birth, but of an ending. The age of Pisces began more than 2,000 years ago, marked by the archetype of the fish, a symbol of faith, sacrifice, and surrender. It was an age that wove together the great religions, birthed saints and mystics, and taught humanity the lessons of compassion and devotion. But within its waters were also currents of illusion. The same faith that inspired miracles also gave rise to blind obedience. The same unity that built temples also forged chains. The Akashic prophecies of the Piscean era often spoke in paradox. They foretold a time when the waters of belief would grow stagnant, when sacred teachings would be distorted for power, and when the shepherd would use the flock for his own survival. The symbols of the fish and the net, once signs of spiritual nourishment, became warnings of minds caught in webs of dogma, of souls drifting in currents not their own. Seers across cultures recorded visions of the collapse. Some saw the towers of authority crumbling into the sea. Others saw a great fog lifting, revealing that the horizon people had followed for centuries was painted on the inside of a wall. The Hopi spoke of a world of separation, reaching its breaking point. The Christian mystics described a second coming, not as a single figure, but as an awakening within the hearts of many. Modern astrologers link this transition to the precession into Aquarius, a sign that dissolves the old waters and replaces them with waves of innovation and truth. But the Akashic field had spoken of it long before, describing a moment when the Piscean blueprint would dissolve entirely, leaving only those truths that could survive the light. And so, the end was never about destruction. It was about release, about learning to swim without the net and trust the open sea. A figure stands at the edge of the sky, pouring light from a vessel into the world below. The water flows in spirals, carrying memory, truth, and change. This is the vision of Aquarius, the water bearer, as seen through the eyes of the Akashic field. In the language of the stars, Aquarius is the water bearer. Yet it is not a sign of water, but of air. Its symbol shows a figure pouring water from a vessel, not to hoard it, but to share it freely with the world. In the Akashic visions, this water is not the water of rivers or seas. It is the water of truth, of wisdom, of remembrance. And when it pours, it cleanses the illusions carried from the last age. The ancients understood Aquarius as the bringer of renewal. Babylonian star maps depict it as the god Ea, pouring the waters of life upon the earth. In Egypt, it was linked to Hapi, the spirit of the Nile's inundation, a flood that nourished the land and marked the beginning of the new year. In the Akashic field, these archetypes merge into a single image, a luminous figure at the edge of the cosmos, tipping a jar of light toward humanity. The stream that flows is not linear. It spirals, carrying codes, memories, and the blueprint for a new consciousness. This archetype is deeply tied to liberation. Aquarius breaks structures that bind, not with force, but with a surge of insight that makes the chains irrelevant. In the visions, old hierarchies dissolve like ink in water. Communities form not from bloodline or creed, but from resonance of purpose. Technology, once a tool of separation, becomes a bridge. Communication transcends language, and knowledge flows without gatekeepers. But the Akashic prophecies also carry a warning. The water can only nourish those willing to drink. To those still clinging to the nets of the past, it feels like a flood. And so, the water bearer pours without judgment, knowing each soul will decide whether the water becomes life or passes them by. Imagine 3 curtains, each heavier than the last, drawn over the eyes of the soul. For lifetimes, they have hidden the view beyond, letting only shadows through. The prophecies say the new age will pull them back, one by one. In the Akashic visions of the coming age, there is a moment when 3 veils are lifted. They are not physical barriers, but layers of perception that have kept humanity from seeing its own reflection clearly. Mystics describe these veils in many ways, but their essence is the same. Each one obscures a deeper level of truth, and each one dissolves only when the soul is ready to face what lies beyond. The first veil is the veil of separation. It is the illusion that you are an isolated being, cut off from the web of life, from the mind of the cosmos. This veil shapes the story of I and mine, a story that served its purpose in earlier ages, but now begins to fall away. When it lifts, the interconnectedness of all things is not a philosophy. It is felt directly, like the pulse of your own blood. The second veil is the veil of false identity. It is the mask woven from roles, titles, and beliefs that have been handed to you rather than chosen. The Akashic field shows this moment like a mirror shattering, revealing the luminous self beneath. This unveiling is not always comfortable. It demands the death of what is not truly yours. The third veil is the veil of forgetfulness. It is the amnesia of the soul, the forgetting of who you have been and why you came. When this veil lifts, past and future selves flow into the present, and memory becomes more than personal. It becomes cosmic. The prophecies say all 3 veils will lift in waves, not all at once. For some, it will feel like a dawn. For others, like standing naked in a storm. But beyond them, the horizon of consciousness stands clear and endless. There was a time when humanity's most advanced tools were invisible, carried not in the hand, but in the heart and mind. The old world called them miracles. The new world will remember them as our oldest birthright. The Akashic Prophecies speak of a time when humanity will remember the tools it carried long before the first city was built, before the first word was written. These are not devices forged of metal or circuits, but abilities woven into the soul itself, the inner technology. In the old world, these capacities were as natural as breathing. Telepathy was not called a gift, it was a language. Healing was not an art, it was a responsibility. Intuition was not a hunch, it was guidance as precise as any compass. Over the ages, these abilities faded, not because they were lost, but because they were buried beneath layers of distraction, fear, and disbelief. The Piscean blueprint, with its emphasis on authority and external saviors, placed power outside the self. In doing so, it dimmed the memory of the technologies within. Yet in the Akashic visions of the Aquarian age, these capacities begin to surface again, first as subtle impressions, then as undeniable experiences. Science is beginning to trace their outlines. Research into neuroplasticity shows that the brain is not fixed, but adaptable, capable of rewiring itself to support heightened perception. Studies on the heart-brain connection reveal electromagnetic fields extending beyond the body, influencing and synchronizing with others. Quantum entanglement hints at the non-local nature of consciousness, a truth the ancients knew without laboratories. The prophecies describe this return as both a gift and a test, for when the inner technology awakens, it magnifies intention. A heart steeped in compassion can heal across oceans. A mind clouded by fear can harm without lifting a hand. The field itself does not judge, it responds. And so, The awakening is not simply about remembering what we can do. It is about remembering why we must do it in love. Tea begins like a whisper you can't unhear, a dream that stays with you, a sudden knowing with no source. Across the world, millions experience it at once. The memory of something ancient returning all at once. The Akashic Records hold a recurring vision, a wave of awakening that moves not through one nation, not through one faith, but across the whole of humanity. It is called the Great Remembrance. In the visions, it begins quietly, a dream that feels too real to ignore, a sudden knowing without explanation, a pattern in the world that repeats until it cannot be dismissed. At first, these awakenings seem isolated, scattered like stars, but slowly they connect, forming a constellation across the collective mind. Mystics from different traditions have spoken of this moment. The Hopi prophecy tells of a time when the people will remember the original instructions. The Vedic texts speak of the Satya Yuga, an age when truth returns and illusion dissolves. In Christian mysticism, it is the descent of the Holy Spirit upon all people, not as an external event, but as an inner ignition. The Akashic visions merge these threads into one tapestry, the recognition that we have never been separate from the source we seek. Science mirrors this shift in its own language. Researchers in the field of global consciousness have recorded measurable changes in the Earth's magnetic field during moments of mass emotional focus. Neuroscience shows that meditation and coherent states in large groups can create patterns of synchrony that extend beyond the individual brain. The Great Remembrance is not about learning something new. It is about peeling away the layers that hid what was always known. It is a return to a memory older than history, older than language. The records show it as a light blooming in the chest of millions at once, each flame feeding the next, until the darkness has nowhere left to hide. And when it comes, the world will not end. It will simply remember itself. The moment arrives without warning. A truth breaks through the mind's defenses, and the familiar world tilts on its axis. What once felt solid now feels like glass, and the cracks are spreading. In the Akashic visions of the transition, there is a moment that feels less like a gentle awakening and more like a breaking. It is the shattering of the old mind, the collapse of the structures, beliefs, and identities that once defined reality. To the unprepared, it can feel like chaos, a dismantling of the very ground beneath their feet. But to the soul, it is the necessary clearing before something greater can be built. Psychologists call this process cognitive dissonance, the tension that arises when deeply held beliefs are challenged by undeniable truth. Mystics know it by another name: initiation. It is the point when the familiar map no longer matches the territory, and the only path forward is through the unknown. The prophecies describe it in powerful imagery. Walls of glass suddenly fracture, revealing a horizon that had always been there. A mask worn for lifetime slips, and the air feels different on the skin. The noise of old narratives fades, replaced by a silence that is not empty, but full. A silence in which the soul's voice can finally be heard. Modern neuroscience suggests that such transformation rewires the brain itself. Old neural pathways, built from habit and fear, weaken. New ones form as the mind learns to perceive without the filters of conditioning. Spiritual traditions mirror this in their rites of passage. The death of the old self, the rebirth into a wider consciousness. The shattering is not meant to destroy. It is meant to liberate. For when the old mind breaks, the world is seen without distortion. The soul is no longer bound by the illusions it once mistook for truth. And in that clarity, the next chapter of the human story can finally begin. Two mirrors face you. One shows a world radiant with connection, beauty, and freedom. The other distorts, bending every image toward fear. Both are real. Both are here. In the Akashic visions of the Aquarian age, there are two great mirrors held before humanity. One shines with a radiant clarity, reflecting the highest potentials of our creation. The other distorts, bending the image into something unrecognizable. These are the mirrors of technology, one born of wisdom, the other of control. The prophecies show them rising together, like twin rivers flowing from the same source. In the bright mirror, technology becomes an extension of consciousness. It connects minds across oceans, allows knowledge to flow freely, and amplifies humanity's capacity to heal and create. This mirror reflects the original purpose of tools: to serve life, to expand awareness, to remind us of our unity. In the shadowed mirror, technology becomes a cage disguised as a gift. It narrows perception, gathers every thought and movement into the hands of the few, and replaces direct human experience with endless imitation. The Akashic field shows this path as a web of light that traps instead of illuminates, its strands tightening with every click, every surrender of attention. Both mirrors exist now. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology hold the power to liberate or enslave. The outcome depends not on the tools themselves, but on the consciousness that wields them. The Hopi spoke of a two-hearted time, when humanity would face a choice between sacred life and artificial life. In the visions, that choice is not made in a single moment, but in countless daily actions, in what we create, what we share, what we consent to. The bright mirror shows the self as part of a living cosmos. The dark mirror shows only the self, and so the prophecies do not warn against the mirrors themselves, but against forgetting which one reflects the truth. Some are born carrying more than their own memories. Their eyes hold the weight of other lifetimes, other worlds. They are the ones who walk between the ages, steadying the path for those who follow. In the Akashic Prophecies, there is a thread that speaks of the bridge souls, those who have lived through many lifetimes, carrying wisdom from earlier ages into this one. They are not here by accident. They are the ones who agreed, long before their birth, to walk between worlds during the great turning of the ages. One foot in the fading Piscean waters, the other already stepping into the Aquarian current. Bridge souls are often born feeling out of place, as if their memories do not match the world they've entered. From childhood, they sense the cracks in the stories society tells. They feel the weight of truths unspoken, the call to something beyond what the eye can see. Many are drawn to ancient knowledge, Hermeticism, Vedic teachings, shamanic traditions, not to escape the present, but to anchor the timeless within it. In the prophecies, these souls are shown as luminous threads stretched across a chasm. They connect generations, weaving the wisdom of elders with the vision of the young. They speak many languages, of spirit, of science, of heart, because their role is to translate, to make the new intelligible without discarding the old. Modern psychology might call them empaths, visionaries, or even cultural creatives. But in the Akashic field, they are seen as structural supports in the architecture of the new age. Without them, the bridge would sway and fracture under the weight of change. The work of a bridge soul is rarely easy. They feel the grief of what is ending and the labor pains of what is beginning. Yet they walk forward anyway, knowing they were born for this crossing. And when the bridge is finally complete, their footprints will remain, guiding those who follow into a world remade. Not every danger in the new age will come as shadow. Some will arrive wrapped in light, speaking the language of truth while quietly turning the seeker in circles. These are the temptations the prophecies warned of. The Akashic Prophecies speak with equal clarity about the light of the new age and the shadows that will try to follow it. Every great shift carries its own temptations, subtle diversions that can slow or even halt awakening. In the visions, these appear not as monstrous threats, but as beautiful distractions, crafted to look like truth. One of the first temptations is the hunger for certainty. In the space between ages, old structures dissolve, and the mind craves something solid to hold. This craving can lead seekers to cling to new dogmas disguised as liberation, ideologies that promise freedom but demand unquestioning loyalty. The field warns that the chains of the future may be woven from the very words enlightenment and truth. Another temptation is spiritual bypassing, using lofty ideas to avoid the discomfort of deep transformation. The visions show paths lined with glittering signs of love and light, but beneath them, unresolved wounds remain untouched. The records are clear. The new age is not built by escaping the shadow, but by integrating it. A third temptation is the seduction of power. As the inner technology awakens, so too does the ability to influence others in ways that seem miraculous. The field shows how easily such gifts can be turned inward for personal gain or outward for manipulation. Without humility, the same abilities that heal can harm. The prophecies warn that these temptations will not come only from outside forces. They will arise within each soul as tests. The measure of the shift is not how many speak of awakening, but how many choose love, integrity, and truth when illusions appear. For in the age of Aquarius, deception will not hide in darkness. It will hide in the light and ask to be believed. They appear in dreams, in the rustle of leaves, in the pause between breaths. You will not hear them speak, yet their presence can change the course of a life. These are the silent teachers. In the Akashic visions of the coming age, there are presences that walk beside humanity, yet do not speak in words. They are the silent teachers, guides who do not command or interfere, but whose influence can shift the course of a life with a single moment of contact. Some appear in forms that the human mind can recognize: an elder in a dream, a luminous figure at the edge of waking. Others are felt only as a presence, an unmistakable sense of being observed with love and precision. Across cultures, these guides have been named in many ways. In Tibetan Buddhism, they are the Dakinis, subtle messengers who carry wisdom between realms. In the traditions of the Andes, they are the Apus, the spirits of the mountains, silent but watchful. Some mystics speak of star beings whose civilizations have long transcended physical form, yet still tend the seeds of awakening on earth. The prophecies describe the silent teachers as record keepers of the ages, entrusted with safeguarding the balance between human free will and divine guidance. They do not dictate the path. Instead, they create moments. Improbable synchronicities, sudden insights, signs that appear when the heart is open enough to notice. Science may dismiss these as chance, but to those attuned to the field, they are deliberate interventions placed like stepping stones across a river. The Akashic field shows that in the age of Aquarius, contact with these guides will become more frequent, not through grand displays, but through quiet presence woven into daily life. A bird landing beside you at the exact moment of a decision, a dream that answers a question you didn't know you were asking. The silent teachers will not speak, but in their silence, they will say everything. A light rises on the horizon, golden and pure. Hearts leap to follow it, but in time, the traveler discovers it is not the sun, only the reflection of their longing. In the Akashic field, there are visions of a light that rises too soon. It is called the false dawn, a brilliance that appears to signal the arrival of the new age, but is in truth only a reflection, a mirage cast by the hunger for change. The prophecies warn that in the turbulence between ages, humanity's longing for transformation can be so strong that it mistakes the first glimmers for the full sunrise. The false dawn often arrives clothed in beauty, movements promising instant enlightenment, leaders speaking in the language of unity while quietly reinforcing division, technologies that seem to free but quietly bind. In the Akashic visions, it is shown as a golden horizon that pulls travelers forward, only to lead them back into the same labyrinth they thought they had escaped. This pattern is not new. History remembers spiritual revivals that inspired millions, only to collapse under the weight of unexamined shadow. Even in mystical traditions, initiates were warned against mistaking early visions for the final truth. In Sufi practice, there is the concept of istidraj, the idea that certain gifts or insights may arrive before one's heart is ready to use them wisely, serving as a subtle test rather than a blessing. The danger of the false dawn is not in its existence, but in the choice to stop walking once it appears. Premature awakening halts growth, convincing the seeker that they have arrived, when in truth, they have only touched the outer gates. The prophecies are clear. The new age is not won in a moment of inspiration, but in the steady, unglamorous work of embodiment. The true dawn will not demand you follow. It will not sell you its light. It will simply rise. And when it does, the difference will be undeniable. A low tremor ripples through the ground, so subtle it could be mistaken for the passage of a heavy train. But there are no tracks here, only open land, quiet under a pale sky. In the visions of ancient seers, moments like this were the first murmurs of the earth changes, signals that the planet herself was shifting her breath. These shifts are not sudden acts of destruction. They are movements in a long, deliberate dance, aligning the body of the earth with the rhythm of a new age. The Hopi elders spoke of a great shaking that would come before the world was renewed. The Andean prophecies of Pachacuti described an inversion, when what was hidden would rise and what was false would fall. Norse sagas told of Fimbulwinter, a season out of balance before the rebirth of the world. In the Akashic field, these images converge, the tides reaching further inland, mountains stirring in their foundations, skies painted in colors not seen for generations. Science observes these same signs with different language. Melting ice sheets, rising seas, shifts in the Earth's magnetic field, storms of unusual intensity. To the mystic, these are not random disruptions, but reflections of an inner recalibration, as if the planet is shedding what no longer serves her. Yet within the upheaval, the prophecies reveal beauty. New rivers carve ancient paths. Seeds dormant for millennia awaken in thawed soil. Creatures long absent return to lands that remember them. The earth is not simply enduring change. She is participating in creation. And for those who can listen beyond fear, the message is clear. Humanity is not a bystander to this transformation. We are woven into it, called to match the earth's renewal with our own. For as she rises, so must we. Long before the first written word, humanity spoke in a language that needed no translation. It was not sound, but vibration. Not letters on a page, but patterns of light in the mind and heart. The Akashic Prophecies tell of this language returning, not as an invention, but as a remembering. They call it the language of light. In the visions, this form of communication bypasses the barriers of spoken tongues. Thoughts, images, and emotions are transmitted directly, wrapped in subtle waves of color and frequency. What is sent is not just the message, but the energy behind it, the truth of the heart, as well as the words of the mind. Misunderstanding fades because the transmission carries the fullness of intent. Ancient records echo this idea. The Egyptian Medunetta, often translated as words of the gods, was believed to be a sacred system of symbols that mirrored cosmic principles. In Vedic traditions, the concept of Nada Brahma, the world is sound, speaks to a universe where vibration itself is the ultimate language. The Mayan glyphs, too, were more than writing. They were portals, each carrying layers of meaning beyond the visual form. Modern science has begun to brush against this mystery. Studies on biophotons, tiny packets of light emitted by living cells, suggest that our bodies may communicate through light at a cellular level. Heart coherence research shows that emotion itself radiates a measurable field that can influence others without a word. The prophecies describe the return of this language as both a gift and a responsibility. For in the language of light, nothing can be hidden. Every thought, every feeling, every shadow, and every grace is part of the transmission. In this way, it does not simply change how we speak. It changes who we are when we speak. They are born at the seam of time, in the narrow passage between two great ages. The prophecies call them the children of the crossing. Their lives carry the weight of two currents, one pulling toward the familiar patterns of the Piscean past, the other urging them into the uncharted waters of Aquarius. They are both bridge and traveler, carrying the memory of what was while feeling the pull of what is to come. From an early age, these souls often sense they do not fully belong to the world they were born into. The systems around them, education, religion, politics, feel too small, too rigid, as if they were built for someone else. Yet the world they long for does not fully exist, not yet. This in-between space can bring restlessness, confusion, even grief, but it also grants them a rare gift, the ability to see both the fading shadows of the old age and the first light of the new. Ancient traditions spoke of such beings. The Hopi described the rainbow warriors who would come when the earth was in peril, carrying wisdom from many peoples. In the Vedic texts, they echo as Devya, the twice-born, living in two realities at once. The Maya told of those born in the Wayeb, the sacred gap days between their calendar cycles, believed to hold unusual power and responsibility. In the Akashic visions, the children of the crossing are shown as lantern bearers walking a winding path. Behind them, they carry stories, songs, and lessons that must not be lost. Ahead, they step into futures that have yet to be written. Their challenge is to hold both, to honor the roots without becoming entangled, and to move forward without severing the thread. They are here not only to witness the turning of the ages, but to help steer it. In many prophecies, before the new world can emerge, there comes a time of great cleansing. The Hopi call it the Great Purification, a period when the earth and its people are stripped of what no longer serves life. In the Akashic visions, this is not a punishment, but a necessary clearing. Like the fire that passes through a forest so new growth can take root. It is the release of energies, systems, and illusions that cannot survive in the higher frequency of the coming age. The purification takes many forms. On the outer level, it can appear as upheaval, political structures collapsing under their own weight, economies resetting, natural forces reshaping the land. On the inner level, it comes as a deep, sometimes painful transformation of the self. Old wounds rise to the surface. Hidden truths come to light. Beliefs once held as unshakable dissolve like mist in the morning sun. Ancient traditions have long understood this cycle. In Hindu cosmology, each yuga ends with a dissolution that prepares the ground for renewal. In the Andean prophecy of Pachacuti, the world is turned over. The false is brought down. The true is lifted up. Even in nature, the same pattern repeats. Storms cleanse the air, floods replenish the soil, fire clears the underbrush to make way for life. Science offers its own reflection of this principle. Ecologists speak of disturbance ecology, where periods of disruption are vital for the health of ecosystems. On a human level, psychology recognizes that profound change often comes only after a breaking point, when the old self can no longer hold. The Akashic field shows that those who resist the purification may experience it as chaos and loss, while those who surrender to it will feel its hidden mercy. For within the clearing lies the promise. What is true will remain, and what is new will flourish. The great purification is not the end. It is the beginning made possible. It begins as a subtle shift, a flicker of movement where nothing should be moving, a sense of being watched when no one is there. Colors appear more vivid, yet also carry a meaning beyond their hue. Dreams grow sharper, blurring the line between night vision and waking life. The Akashic Prophecies call this the opening of the etheric eye, the return of humanity's natural clairvoyance. In ancient times, this sight was not considered extraordinary. The Egyptians depicted it as the Eye of Horus, symbolizing perception that transcends the physical. In Hindu philosophy, it is the Ajna Chakra, the third eye, seat of intuition and spiritual insight. Indigenous shamans across the world speak of seeing with the heart, perceiving the web of life in ways beyond the five senses. Over the ages, this ability receded, dimmed by over-reliance on external authority and material perception. Now, in the visions of the new age, it returns, not to a select few, but to many. Science offers quiet parallels. Research into the pineal gland, often called the seat of the soul by mystics like Descartes, shows its role in regulating circadian rhythms and possibly producing dimethyltryptamine, a compound linked to visionary states. Neuroplasticity studies reveal that meditation and focused attention can restructure the brain, enhancing intuitive and extrasensory awareness. The prophecies say that when the etheric eye opens, truth can no longer be hidden. Lies carry a vibration that is felt instantly. The shape of a choice can be seen before its consequences unfold. This awakening is not only a gift, but a responsibility. For once you see beyond the veil, you can no longer pretend not to. And so, the return of clairvoyance is not about fortune-telling or spectacle. It is about alignment, living in such harmony with truth that sight itself becomes a form of service. In the Akashic visions, there is a moment when threads of light rise from every living being and weave themselves into a vast lattice around the earth. This is called the golden net, a unified field of consciousness linking all souls, all hearts, all minds. It is not made of metal or wire, but of energy and awareness, shimmering like sunlight on water. In the prophecies, its creation marks a turning point, when separation gives way to connection so complete that it changes the very fabric of reality. Ancient traditions hinted at this. The Vedic concept of Indra's net speaks of an infinite web where each point reflects all others, symbolizing the interconnectedness of existence. In the Andean cosmovision, Aini describes a sacred reciprocity that binds all beings in mutual exchange. Even medieval mystics like Hildegard of Bingen describe visions of living light encircling the world, holding it in harmony. Modern science, in its own language, is beginning to glimpse similar patterns. Studies in quantum entanglement show that particles can remain connected across vast distances, their states changing in perfect correlation. Research into global consciousness suggests that human thought and emotion may influence measurable patterns in the Earth's electromagnetic field. The golden net, as seen in the field, is the living synthesis of these truths, a planetary nervous system awakening. In the prophecies, the net strengthens when people act from truth, compassion, and coherence. Each kind thought, each act of courage, sends a ripple through it, brightening the weave. Fear, division, and deceit weaken the threads, dimming the light. The golden net is not imposed from above, it is woven from within. And when its light grows strong enough, the prophecies say, humanity will no longer need to be told that it is one. It will feel it, live it, and know it beyond doubt. In the Akashic Prophecies, there is a threshold that cannot be crossed by knowledge alone. It is called the last gate, the final initiation, before the soul fully steps into the vibration of the new age. Unlike earlier gates, which open through insight or the shedding of illusion, this one requires complete alignment of thought, word, and deed. It is not guarded by any external force, but by the truth within the traveler's own heart. The visions show it as a doorway made of light, yet it feels heavier than stone. Those who approach it carry with them the sum of their lifetimes. Every intention, every action, every unresolved shadow. The gate does not judge, yet it responds instantly to the state of one's being. If there is still fear, it becomes opaque. If there is still deception, it will not open. Only when the inner and outer self are one can the passage be made. Ancient mystery schools hinted at such a trial. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the heart of the initiate is weighed against the feather of Ma'at, a symbol of truth. In Sufi tradition, the seeker must pass through Fana, the annihilation of the ego, before union with the beloved. In Buddhist teaching, enlightenment is not the gaining of something new, but the complete release of clinging. Modern spiritual psychology reflects this as integration, the process of embodying the highest values in every part of life, not just in moments of meditation or inspiration. The Akashic field makes clear, the last gate is not about reaching perfection. It is about reaching transparency, where nothing is hidden from oneself. For beyond this threshold lies the reality where creation responds instantly to thought. And in such a place, only the fully aligned can walk without leaving harm in their wake. Across the dream of humanity, a fog has settled for thousands of years. It draped itself over our beginnings, softened the edges of our memories, and dimmed the light of who we truly are. For so long, we've mistaken the blur for reality, thinking the veil was the sky itself. But then, something shifts. The air changes. A slow wind begins to move through the mist, curling it away in delicate spirals, revealing shapes, faces, and moments we had almost forgotten we'd lived. The Akashic visions call this the Great Remembering, not because something new is learned, but because what was always known returns. In this moment, every soul recalls its origin, its purpose, and the countless lifetimes that led to this crossing of the ages. It begins subtly. A person dreams of a place they have never been, yet wakes with the certainty they once lived there. Another meets a stranger and feels the recognition of an ancient friend. Children speak of other lives with detail too precise to dismiss. The field shows these sparks multiplying, connecting into a wave of remembrance that encircles the earth. Ancient traditions describe this in their own way. In the Upanishads, liberation comes with the realization of Tattvam Asi. Thou art that, the knowing of one's unity with the Absolute. The Gnostics wrote of anamnesis, a divine recollection of the soul's true home. In the Hopi Prophecies, it is the return to the original instructions, a way of living in harmony with all beings. Modern research into near-death experiences and past life memories suggests that consciousness may store far more than the physical brain can explain. The Great Remembering is not a sudden burst of information, but a shift in identity. Once it begins, the illusion of separation fades, and life is no longer seen as random, but as a deliberate journey of growth and return. When all souls remember together, the story of humanity will no longer be told in years or empires, but in lifetimes and light. They are rarely seen and almost never named. In the Akashic visions, they appear not as figures of flesh, but as presences, luminous, deliberate, and unwavering. Some are described as towering beings of light, others as cloaked silhouettes whose eyes hold the weight of aeons. Across cultures, their forms shift, yet their function is the same: to safeguard the integrity of the records and the prophecies they contain. In Sumerian myth, the Apkallu were wise beings sent by the gods to preserve sacred knowledge through floods and disasters. In Tibetan lore, hidden masters, or tertans, protect and reveal spiritual treasures at the precise moments they are needed. Indigenous elders speak of the keepers, unseen allies who ensure that the original instructions remain unbroken, even if hidden for generations. These guardians do not interfere with human will, yet they intervene when the timelines of the prophecies are threatened. The Akashic field itself is not a static archive but a living intelligence. Within it, the guardians act like immune cells in a vast body of memory, detecting distortions, shielding truths from misuse, and choosing carefully who may see what. A seeker who approaches the records without humility or clear intent may find nothing but silence, as if the door has vanished. Those who come with purity of purpose often speak of sudden visions, symbolic dreams, or encounters with guides who reveal exactly what is needed. No more, no less. In this time of the Great Shift, the Guardian's work is accelerating. The age of Aquarius brings not only wider access to the records, but also greater risks of distortion. Prophecies are like seeds. Planted too early or in poor soil, they wither. The Guardians stand watch so that when the truth blooms, it does so in alignment with the soul of the earth itself. In their silence is our protection, and in their timing, our awakening. In the Akashic Prophecies, one truth resounds more powerfully than any prediction. The future is not fixed. The threads of destiny shimmer like a vast loom, each line of possibility waiting for the hand of choice to guide it into form. While the Piscean age often placed emphasis on fate, divine decree, or the will of unseen powers, the age of Aquarius restores the great balance, reminding humanity that free will is not a small privilege, but a cosmic law. Mystics across ages have spoken of this. The Hermetic axiom, as within, so without, implies that every internal decision reshapes the external world. Indigenous wisdom keepers speak of walking two paths, the one inherited and the one created. In Vedic thought, karma itself bends and transforms under the light of conscious action. The Akashic field records not only what is, but what could be, its living nature shifting with each new choice made in alignment with the soul's truth. This prophecy of choice is not a gentle reminder. It is a warning and a liberation woven together. In times of transition, the temptation will be strong to surrender agency to leaders, systems, or voices that promise certainty. But the new age does not reward blind obedience. It demands discernment, participation, and courage. Every decision, what to believe, what to release, what to embody, becomes a signal sent into the fabric of reality. Alone, a choice may seem small. Together, choices converge into rivers of change, carrying whole civilizations toward light or shadow. The Akashic visions of this age show multitudes standing at a single vast crossroads. There is no one prophecy for all. There are countless possible prophecies, and each life tilts the scale. In the end, the greatest vision the records reveal is this: the future is waiting for you. The Akashic Prophecies speak of the Aquarian Age not as a utopia delivered from above, but as a living vision born through humanity's awakening. In these records of potential, the symbol of the water bearer is more than a celestial marker. It is the archetype of one who carries the life-giving waters of truth, wisdom, and compassion, pouring them freely without hierarchy, without gatekeeping. The vision is not of a single savior or a chosen few, but of a collective renaissance where knowledge is shared as freely as light. Unlike the Piscean blueprint, which often centralized power in temples, thrones, and hidden chambers, the Aquarian vision decentralizes the sacred. Truth becomes accessible not only to scholars or mystics, but to anyone whose heart and mind align with its frequency. Ancient prophecies from the Andes to the Himalayas foresaw this time as a return of the people to the council fire, a reweaving of community where each soul is both teacher and student, both leader and servant. In the Akashic field, this vision shimmers with an unmistakable quality: transparency. Lies, manipulation, and control lose their hold as the frequency of the age demands authenticity. Technologies, both external and internal, are used to uplift rather than to dominate. Barriers between nations, races, and creeds dissolve, not by decree, but by the natural recognition that all are expressions of the same source. Yet this vision does not promise ease. The prophecies warn that the old systems will resist until their last breath, and the shadows within each individual will rise to be healed. But if humanity chooses to embody the water-bearer's gift, the Aquarian Age becomes more than an era in the stars. It becomes the first time in recorded history where the world is shaped not by the few, but by the many awakened together. To read your own prophecy within the Akashic field is not to pry into a fixed fate, but to step into a living river of possibility. The records do not present a script you are bound to follow. They offer a tapestry of threads, each shimmering with a different outcome depending on the choices you make. Accessing this vision requires more than curiosity. It requires alignment. The old mystics said the key is purity of intent. Approaching the field not to control the future, but to understand how to shape it with integrity. Begin with stillness, whether through meditation, breath work, or a simple moment of silence each day, you create the inner doorway through which the subtle impressions of the records can enter. The Akashic field speaks in symbols, feelings, and archetypal patterns more often than in words. A sudden image, a repeated number, a dream that lingers. These are the whispers of your personal prophecy. Keep a journal of them. Over time, the fragments begin to weave into something coherent, much like the ancients who traced star maps over decades. Certain times heighten the clarity of access, dawn, moments before sleep, and the liminal hours between night and day, when the conscious mind loosens its grip. Some traditions teach the use of sacred geometry visualizations, or the silent repetition of mantras to stabilize the mind and lift awareness beyond the noise of the material world. Above all, trust your resonance. The records will not hand you every answer at once. They reveal in layers, allowing your consciousness to grow into what it receives. As you follow these impressions, you may notice not only insights about your path, but subtle shifts in your reality, the future rearranging itself in response to your choice to see and to walk, the vision you were always meant to live. The Akashic Prophecies have always existed, resting like seeds in the soil of eternity, waiting for the exact season to sprout. Their disclosure now is not accidental. In the turning of the great ages, there are moments when the veil thins, when humanity's collective vibration reaches a threshold that allows more light and more truth to enter. We are living in such a moment. The shift from Pisces to Aquarius marks a recalibration of consciousness, a movement from faith in authority to direct knowing, from following outer commands to awakening inner sovereignty. Ancient seers understood that if these visions were revealed too early, they could be twisted by the hands of those not yet ready, becoming tools of control rather than liberation. Knowledge without maturity is dangerous. But now, the field itself is responding to a global call. Millions are asking deeper questions, no longer satisfied with inherited answers. The very frequency of human thought is reaching into subtler layers of the Akasha, pulling forth what was once hidden. There is also a cosmic timing at work, alignments in the precession of the equinoxes, electromagnetic changes in Earth's field, and solar cycles that alter the way our nervous systems receive and process information. Mystics have long said that the Akashic field opens in waves, and this present wave is one of the most significant in recorded history. The release of these prophecies now is both a gift and a test. A gift because they offer guidance for navigating the turbulence of transition. A test because how we respond, with fear or with wisdom, will determine which timelines take root. They arrive in this moment because, ready or not, the age of Aquarius has begun, and with it, the invitation to live what we once only dared to read. You are not just a reader of these prophecies, you are one of their pages. Somewhere before you took this form, your essence was inked into the living library of the Akashic field. The choices you would face, the strengths you would remember, the lessons you would carry forward. All of it was written, not as a fixed fate, but as a thread in a greater tapestry. And now, as the pages of the old age turn and the bindings loosen, your line in this story has begun to glow. This is why the visions feel familiar, why certain truths pierce you with both recognition and urgency. You are not stumbling upon these teachings by accident. They are finding you because they have always belonged to you. The Age of Aquarius is not only a prophecy to witness, it is a book you are helping to write. Each thought, each choice, each act of courage, adding new ink to the unfolding record. The call now is not to simply awaken in theory, but to awaken in action, to move from silent knowing to embodied living, to stop treating the sacred as something distant and start breathing it into every moment you are given. The Akashic field is watching, recording, responding to you, not as a passive scribe, but as a mirror that magnifies your frequency into the fabric of the collective. So stand as the page you are. Let your words, your deeds, your presence become a prophecy in motion, because one day someone will read the chapter you are living right now, and when they do, may they find in your story the proof that awakening was not only possible, it was inevitable. Before you leave this moment, pause, take a breath, feel the weight of what has been spoken here, and the truth that it did not reach you by accident. If this journey has stirred something within you, if a memory, a vision, or a quiet certainty has awakened, then the path is calling you deeper, and we are walking it together. There is so much more to uncover, stories hidden in plain sight, truths buried in the folds of time, visions that were never meant to be lost. So, don't let this be where it ends. Watch the other chapters we've uncovered, the ones that connect the threads of your soul's history to the destiny unfolding now. Subscribe, so the next revelation finds you the moment it's ready to be heard. Leave a comment, your story, your insight, your knowing, because your voice is part of the prophecy too. Share this with those you feel are ready, even if they don't yet understand why. And if this touched you, give it a like, so the signal carries farther into the field. Every action you take here is not just for the algorithm. It is for the awakening. It is for the weaving of the new age. It is for the remembering of who we are. This is not just a channel. This is the hidden voyage. And the next chapter is already waiting for you.